was a Friday afternoon, one of those gray, quiet ones where the office feels heavier than usual. I just finished a session with a couple I'd been seeing for almost 8 months, and after they left, I sat there in my chair by the window, just thinking. In over 30 years of practicing psychology, I've sat across from thousands of people, couples in crisis, women in their 50s and 60s who came to me with the same look in their eyes, that exhausted, questioning look that says, was any of it real? That afternoon, I kept thinking about something a patient of mine, I'll call her Sandra, told me a few weeks before. Sandra is 58, retired school teacher from Ohio. She'd been married for 22 years, and after her divorce, she started seeing someone new. And she came into my office one day, absolutely glowing. Not the nervous, performative kind of happy, the real kind, the settled kind. She said to me, Dr. Kingsley, he says things to me that my ex-husband never said in 2 decades, and I don't know what to do with that. And I told her, let's talk about exactly what he's saying. Because here's what I've learned after more than 30 years of sitting in this chair. Words matter. But which words and when they're said and how they come out of a person's mouth, that tells you everything. Now, I want to be very clear about something right from the start, because I know a lot of you watching this have been hurt before. Some of you have heard beautiful words from men who turned out to be anything but. Some of you are wondering right now, how do I know if it's real? And that is exactly the question I'm going to answer today. Because yes, a charming man can say nice things. A manipulative man can say nice things. But there is a specific category of words, things a man will only say when he's in a genuinely deep emotional bond with you, that are almost impossible to fake consistently over time. And I'm going to walk you through all 8 of them. These aren't rehearsed lines. They're not pickup artist scripts. These are words that emerge from the deeper layers of a man's emotional experience. Words that come out almost involuntarily, especially during moments of real intimacy. Not just physical intimacy, emotional intimacy. Those quiet moments, those unguarded moments. The moments when his defenses are down and his nervous system feels safe enough to actually speak the truth. So let's start. The first thing he'll say is some version of, I can just be myself with you. Now that might sound simple, almost too simple. But I want you to understand what's actually happening neurologically and emotionally when a man says this. Most men, and I'm speaking from decades of working with male clients, listening to their partners, observing how men communicate in therapeutic settings, most men spend a significant portion of their daily lives in what I call performance mode. They're managing how they're perceived at work, with friends, even with family. There's a constant low-level monitoring happening. Am I coming across right? Am I strong enough? Am I enough? When a man tells you, especially during a moment of closeness, that he can simply be around you, he is telling you that your presence turns off that internal alarm system. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, one of the most profound things one human being can offer another. Sandra told me her partner said it to her during a completely ordinary Sunday morning. They were just sitting at her kitchen table in Columbus. She was reading. He was doing the crossword. And out of nowhere, he put the paper down and said, you know what I love about being here? I don't have to be anything. I'm just here. She almost missed it. Almost. But that's the thing about these statements, and they often don't arrive with fanfare. They slip out in the quiet. Now, here's where I need to address something important. Something that comes up constantly in conversations about love and relationships, and something I know is on many of your minds. What about men who say these things but don't actually mean them? This is real. This is a legitimate concern, and I don't want to brush past it. A narcissistic man, a man with avoidant attachment, a man who has learned to use emotional language as a tool. He can also say some of these things, but here's the clinical difference. He can't sustain them. Authenticity has a consistency to it that manipulation doesn't. Real love shows up in behavior patterns over months and years, not just in a moment of closeness. So as I walk you through these 8 things, I want you to hold both things at once. Notice the words and watch the patterns. Words plus consistent behavior over time. That's your real answer. The second thing is, I never want to lose this. When a man is in love, genuinely, deeply in love, he becomes acutely aware of what he has to lose. This is particularly true for men over 50 in my experience. They've lived enough life to know that what he has with you isn't something you stumble into twice. This statement is significant because it requires him to be vulnerable about his fear. Men are not generally trained to express fear. In American culture especially, men are conditioned from boyhood to project confidence, certainty, control. So when a man admits out loud to you that he is afraid of losing something, he is breaking a deeply ingrained pattern. That takes real feeling. I had a patient, a 67-year-old woman named Carol, recently widowed, who started a new relationship in her early 60s, who told me her partner said this to her after a disagreement they'd had. They'd worked through it, things were calm again, and he looked at her and said, "I need you to know I never want to lose what we have, whatever it takes." Carol cried telling me that. Not because it was dramatic, because it was the first time in her life a man had admitted that kind of vulnerability to her. She was 63 years old, and it was the first time. You deserve to hear that. And if you haven't heard it yet, that is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of whether the men in your past had the emotional development to say it. The third thing, I want to wake up next to you. This one is about dailiness, about the unglamorous, real, ordinary life, and it matters enormously. There's a huge difference between a man who wants you in the exciting moments and a man who wants you in the Tuesday morning moments. The ones where your hair isn't done and you haven't had coffee yet and you're maybe a little grumpy and the news is on too loud. A man who looks at all of that and says, "I want this." That man is seeing you, not a version of you, not the you that's performing. You. For women in their 50s and 60s, this is particularly meaningful because you've often spent decades being needed for what you do, for being the caretaker, the organizer, the one who holds everything together. To be wanted simply for who you are, in the most ordinary moments of your existence, can feel almost foreign. But that's what this phrase signals. It's him saying, "I'm not interested in the highlight reel. I want the full picture." The fourth thing, I've never felt this way before. Now I know some of you just raised an eyebrow because you've heard this line before, maybe from someone who didn't mean it, and your skepticism is healthy. Keep it. But here's the distinction. When this statement comes from a man in genuine emotional connection, it isn't delivered as a line. It comes out almost confused, almost surprised, like he's reporting something he didn't expect. There's often a pause before it, a kind of searching quality, like he's checking inside himself before he speaks. What he's actually expressing is that his nervous system has been changed by the specific combination of who you are and how you make him feel. Love, real love, is not generic. It's not interchangeable. When a man has found something genuinely new in his emotional experience, his body knows it before his mind does. And for older men especially, men who may have been married before, who've had relationships, who consider themselves experienced, when they say this, it often comes with a kind of awe, because they didn't expect to feel this at 60 or 65 or 70. They thought that chapter was behind them. And then there you were. The fifth thing he'll say is, "I love how you make me feel." This one is subtle and incredibly important, and I want to make sure you hear what's actually being communicated here, because it's not what it sounds like on the surface. It might sound like he's being self-centered, like he's just talking about himself. But in the architecture of male emotional communication, this is actually him telling you something profound about the relationship. You have become part of how he experiences himself. When a man's identity and his emotional well-being become partially organized around your presence, when you are a variable in his inner world, that is deep attachment. That is not casual. That is not a fling. That is a man whose psychological experience of life has been genuinely altered by loving you. In therapy, when I hear a man say something like this about his partner, I take note, because it tells me the relationship has moved past the surface, past the attraction, past the compatibility checklist, into actual psychological integration. That's rare. And when it happens at 55 or 65 or 70, it tends to be more conscious, more chosen, more real than the loves of youth. The sixth, I don't want anyone else. Simple words, but loaded with meaning. This isn't just about fidelity, though of course it includes that. What this statement really communicates is that the man has done an internal comparison, consciously or not, and arrived at a place of singular choice. He's not with you because you're available. He's not with you because it's convenient. He has decided that out of all the possible people in his world, you are the one he wants. For women who've experienced infidelity, or men who were emotionally checked out, or relationships where you always felt like you were competing with someone or something else, this simple sentence can be profoundly healing because it answers the question you may have stopped asking out loud, but never stopped asking inside. Am I enough? Am I chosen? Yes. When he says this, and he means it. Yes. The seventh thing is one of the most psychologically significant of all. You understand me. Or some version of it. You get me. You're the only one who really sees me. I don't have to explain myself to you. I want you to understand what it means for a man to feel truly understood, particularly men of a certain generation. Many men in their 50s, 60s, and older grew up in households and cultures where emotional expression was not only discouraged, but sometimes actively punished. They learned to carry their inner world alone, to not burden others with it, to handle it. When a man finds a woman who genuinely understands him, who reads what he's not saying, who responds to the feeling behind the words, who doesn't require him to perform or explain every nuance, that experience can be genuinely transformational for him. It can feel, and I mean this clinically, like coming home. And here's the other side of this that I want you to hear. If you are that person for someone, if you have that quality of deep attention and intuitive understanding, that is a gift. That is not something you should minimize or give away carelessly. The right person will recognize it, treasure it, and tell you so. The eighth and final thing, and I think this might be the most profound of all, I feel safe with you. Joke, right? A man who tells you he feels safe with you is doing something extraordinarily vulnerable. He is acknowledging that he has been unsafe, that there have been places and people and experiences in his life where he could not let his guard down. And he is telling you that you are different. Safety in the psychological sense means the nervous system is at rest. It means there is no anticipation of attack, criticism, abandonment, or shame. It means a person can be exactly who they are without fear of consequence. When a man says this to you, he is handing you something precious. He is saying, with you, I don't have to be defended. With you, I can rest. And for women, especially women who have spent years being the strong one, the capable one, the one everyone leans on, to be someone's safe place while also being seen and cherished and chosen. That is what a truly equal, deeply loving partnership feels like. Now, I want to come back to the question I promised to answer. How do you know it's real? Here's my clinical answer after 30 years. You look at the distance between what he says and what he does. Real love is not a performance. A man who genuinely loves you will be consistent when it's inconvenient. He'll show up when showing up is hard. He'll choose you not just in the romantic moments, but in the boring ones, the stressful ones, the ones where being in a relationship takes actual effort and sacrifice. A manipulative person, whether narcissistic or simply emotionally undeveloped, will say beautiful things, but their behavior will drift. There will be inconsistencies. There will be moments where the words and the actions don't line up. And over time, that gap will become impossible to ignore. So, give it time. Not because you need to be suspicious, but because love that is real will still be real in 6 months, in a year. It doesn't evaporate when the initial excitement settles. It deepens. I also want to speak directly to those of you who may be watching this and thinking, I've heard all of these words and I still got hurt. I see you. And I want to say, the fact that someone said these things to you and meant them, even if the relationship ultimately didn't survive, even if he chose differently, even if life got in the way, does not mean it wasn't real. Love can be genuine and still not be lasting. That is one of the hardest truths I've had to help people sit with in my practice, but it's important because the reality of the love you've experienced is not canceled by its ending. Sandra, the woman I told you about at the beginning, came back to see me a few months after that first conversation. She was still with the same man, and she told me something that I've been thinking about ever since. She said, Dr. Kingsley, I spent 22 years married to a man who never once said he felt safe with me. who never told me he never wanted to lose me. I thought that was just how men were. I thought I was expecting too much." She paused. "I wasn't expecting too much. I just had the wrong man. You are not expecting too much. The love I've described today is not a fantasy. It's not a Hollywood script. I've seen it in my office. I've seen it in people in their 60s and 70s, finding each other and building something that is, in many ways, more profound and more chosen than anything they experienced in their youth. Because at this stage of life, you are not falling in love out of loneliness or social expectation or the biological rush of being young. When you fall in love now, you know yourself. You know what you've survived. You know what you will and won't accept. And when you find a man who says these 8 things, not perfectly, not all at once, but consistently, genuinely over time, you will know it. Not because of butterflies, because of peace. That's what real love feels like at this stage of life. Not fireworks, not obsession. Peace. The kind that settles into your bones and tells you, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And you, all of you, deserve every bit of it.